So Chris promised to bring some extra juice today. Going to give people a minute or two to trickle in here while I social this. Hey guys, while we're waiting, a few people hate that we do these pre-show talkabouts. They're dead to me. You can just fast forward for 5 minutes. Stop being a big baby. Can you tell that I made the mistake of reading the comment section today? Which warns me not to, but I do it all the time.
You can't handle it.
No.
You're not made for this.
All right, real quick. What's your favorite Halloween candy as a kid, and now as an adult? Like, what do you try to buy for trick or treaters that you hope to have left over yourself?
Reese's Pieces or Kit Kats.
As a kid and as an adult?
Yes, I've not changed much.
Joshua, you eat candy?
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. No, I don't really. I didn't. And we were talking to my mom about this the other day. I was asking her if I used to eat candy as a kid. She said no. Me and my brother used to just run around and like try to hoard as much candy as we could and like dump it out on the floor. But she said we didn't really eat that much. But I'm with Chris. I think it's the Reese's, either the cups or the PCs for me, and then the Kit Kat. And then you can also elevate it to the next level by just throwing all those in the freezer. I've never really been a fan of the sugary candies. And this is weird, but I don't eat like Skittles, Starburst, Twizzlers. I have zero gummy bears. I have zero appetite for any candy like that.
Well, when you go trick-or-treating this year, if you get it, just ship it to Carson. He'll take all of that off your hands.
I think there's like two different kinds of people. Well, then there's the people that just like both or all of them.
And then there's people that like candy corn.
Brendan.
Oh, no, I mean, I'll eat it if it's there, but I'm not going out of my way for it.
So have you guys seen the market today?
No. Is it bad?
I like shit coins, right, Brendan? From our days on the stock pod.
Yes.
And our good friend Bill King, I go on his show every Thursday morning. 2 weeks ago, he told me, he's like, "Oh, have you heard the craze about this SHIB coin, SHIB?" And I was like, "No, Bill, but what is it?" And he just said to buy it, so I bought it. And long story short, I'm up 158% since Bill gave me the go ahead.
Oh, thanks for the heads up.
I did tell you. It's gonna pass my dog coin soon.
Doge. Zach, what's your favorite candy?
I'm kind of on the same wavelength with them. I think Milky Way. That's like my favorite. I like caramel.
It gets stuck in my teeth too much.
Yeah, I'm not like over excessively eating it, but for Halloween, I haven't gone trick or treating in a while, but that used to be my favorite.
Yeah, now I don't go. I mean, now I got to worry about like having my house stocked up with candy. I got a couple bags, but my mom says I need to go get more. She's talking down on my haul. She says that I'm going to get egged if I don't go get like twice as much candy as I have. But it was like $40.
Are you just going to put the bowl out there, or are you going to actually like open the door?
You never just put the bowl out there.
I didn't know. Josh,
great way to go one and done.
No, I'm handing out candy. Maybe based on how good of a costume they have. Maybe.
I buy full bars for our neighborhood kids.
Well, I know where I'll be driving my kids over to.
I'm making Ashley do a little care pack for Carter and Carson.
I'll bring them over there.
I mean, I really don't want to interact with anyone. I'm just going to throw it at you guys and tell you to leave.
I don't know how Carter's going to fit in the car dressed as a dinosaur, but we'll figure it out.
Is it one of those inflatable ones?
Yeah, it's huge.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's unbelievable. He randomly just throws it on in the house and walks into the living room and tries to eat people.
Chris, are you going as Master Frylock again, or is that done?
No, I can't remember if I discarded that or not last year when I added Donkey Kong to the collection.
I wish I had the picture that I could put up here, and then that I knew how to put a picture up on the StreamYard. That would be good content. Ricardo likes. Well, this is disgusting. Brock's white chewies with fruit gummies. That's disappointing. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to ask, do you think Adam Fuller is going to get fired at the end of the season?
What? Not if the defense keeps playing progressively better.
I was just trying to change the subject.
Josh is going to shave his head, put on like a black FSU vest, and go as Adam Fuller for Halloween.
No, I don't think. I mean, if we want to talk about it during the pod, we can, like during actual pod hours. But I actually don't think he's going to get fired.
If they keep performing the way and they keep getting incrementally better, I got some nice nerdy stats to throw into the podcast section that we can. But yeah, there's real growth there. So
Should we play a game like if each coach was a Halloween candy? What would they
no, I made that
No.
when FSU.
I don't want Alex Atkins pissed off at me because I called him like I don't know, a
marshmallow
Snickers bar. I don't know.
All right, so let's just get the podcast going here. I'm hosting.
I was trying to spice
boy.
things up. I was trying to spice things
You
up.
did. But
I'm
I
just trying to bring energy.
We're ready to go here. I can
bring
feel
the
it.
spice.
Everything's
Brendan was
marinated.
talking,
But yeah, I'm gonna host this one, so feel free to derail it any way you'd like.
Oh no,
to.
I can just kick my feet up. Ugh.
Oh wait, no, I'm gonna save it for the podcast. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to On the Bench. I am your host for this episode, Brendan Sonnone. I'm quite rusty at hosting, but Josh has turned over the duties to me for today only. We have a full bench on hand. We got Josh Newberg. Hello, Joshua.
Hola.
Good. Christopher Nee, who's been prodded to bring more energy. Chris, you got the energy?
Energy.
And the first time he's been on since he's become an official. He's been like an unofficial. Got Zach Blossing. He's a full-time FSU Knowles 24/7 employee. Zach, welcome to On the Bench. How's it feel? Does it feel different? You feel like a man now?
Feels the same, but I appreciate all the praise.
Can we do a chant for Zach real quick?
No.
Zachary.
No.
Zachary. You just did energy, Chris, and you won't do Zachary after he deserves it? Zach doesn't want it. It's fine.
My energy can come naturally. You're not going to force my hand.
Okay. Buyer Sonnone, Chris kills me on the road trip up to Clemson this weekend.
Bye.
Like I said, it depends how you survive that tuck and roll. When he tells you tuck and roll, just do it.
All right.
That's your best chance of survival when he kicks you out of the car.
I think it's more a matter of like, is it Georgia, North Georgia, South Georgia, or South Carolina where the tuck and roll occurs?
I don't know if you get outside of the 850, to be honest with you, the way this is going.
All right, so FSU has a big game this week. Maybe you've heard of it. At Clemson, the Noles are on a 3-game winning streak. Clemson struggling a little bit, but the Tigers enter the matchup. Opened as a 10-point favorite. Lines moved a little bit to 9.5 points. It hasn't changed a whole lot. So the fighting Dr, Dabo, Sweeney's are favored over Florida State. Guys, before we get into the matchup and kind of talk about FSU's growth and then how FSU matches up with Clemson, will everyone wear a tank top if FSU beats Clemson this week for the next podcast on Monday?
No, I will not deviate from my leisure athletic suit of my 2-button polo tucked into my sweatpants.
Are you going to do that for Halloween if they win? If FSU wins, will you go full Mike Norvell, go Magic Mike on us?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody will know exactly who I am.
Good. So that's a no for everyone
They'll just
else.
think that I'm some dad looking comfortable in the neighborhood if I wore that.
Not if it's, but you're only doing it for a select handful of people that would appreciate it. It's this audience here. I don't think it's your neighborhood that would care.
Yeah, I'll do it for the podcast.
Okay, so before we get into the nuts and bolts of FSU versus Clemson, let's talk a little bit about the growth that Florida State has had the last, month or so here. The Seminoles haven't lost in a month. They're 3-0 in their last 3 games after starting the season 0-4. It's been a pretty miraculous turnaround given where we were and what we were looking at after that 0-4 start. FSU in the FEI, which is one nerdy metric, is up to 42nd nationally. In the S&P Plus, they're up to 32nd nationally. They jumped up from 50th to 32nd in Bill Connolly's S&P Plus. They're 81st in the ESPN FPI, but we won't pay attention to that. So there's actual legitimate signs that this program is moving in the right direction. Chris, I'm going to throw this to you. This was a topic from JD Law Knoll on the Knowles 24/7 message board. He asked, quote, "Is it possible for you to verbalize the difference of practice this week versus the weeks when we dropped 4 games in a row?" He kind of goes on a little bit of rambling there, but he basically, in summation, he's trying to ask, do we look like we're improving each week of practice. So, Chris, I'm going to throw this to you first, then we'll kind of go from there.
Yes, they do look like they're improving. It's a matter of guys looking more confident in what they're trying to do and also being more receptive in the sense of understanding what's being asked of them. When there is a miscue or a mistake and it is corrected, it is very clear that there's a much better connection in the sense of understanding what I just did wrong and how to go do it right than we saw early in the season. It just didn't translate at times early in the season. Mike Norvell, other members of the staff have said we needed some of those experiences early in the year to be where we are now. I think that's very true, and I think it applies more to practice than even games. Practices translate to games. Biggest difference to me with practice this week, I just think there's a confidence among all parties, players, coaches, everybody involved, that they're capable of being a pretty good football team because they've gone and put it on the field 3 straight games over the last month, over the last 4 weeks, and been capable. They've cut down on penalties. That's been a big, big change. And I think practice played a role in that because of when they brought the officials in. I think that, it may have not been the officials coming in that actually did it, but for whatever reason, that reinforcement of the idea has had a positive effect. Offensively, it's been molded around Jordan Travis. It's abundantly clear he is now their quarterback. He's their go-to guy. He is healthy enough to contribute at a high level. They're building the offense around him. Defensively, I think the biggest change we've seen is the secondary, the confidence. They've rode those guys' backsides quite a bit, as we've referenced previously on this podcast. But Jerian Jones, Jarvis Brownlee, guys like that, you've seen positive steps taken. And then a guy like Kevin Knowles has been an outstanding freshman. Jamie Romson has settled into that safety spot. And I think another big thing with that group is that they've settled into a consistent rotation. Now, yesterday I kind of poked Mike Norvell trying to get him to say this has been the best week of practice ever. He didn't take the bait. I also text when coach on the staff and asked just about the week of practice. And I asked, has this been one of the best weeks? Because they've seemed kind of hyper-focused and very tuned into the game. But he responded to me. He's like, truthfully, we've honestly practiced pretty well throughout the year. So I don't think there's some grandiose difference in this week. I think it's more so that recent results are breeding confidence, and that's in turn breeding more success. It kind of works in an avalanche way in that sense. When things are going bad, they can keep going real bad if you don't kind of stymie it. FSU did a fairly good job of doing that, and now it's going in the right direction. I think we're seeing positive returns because of that.
Josh, you're not there at practice, but you're certainly watching the games and you're talking to sources and whatnot. What, from your perspective, from your vantage point, has been the biggest difference, other than winning games for Florida State in the last month?
The execution of the offensive line. I think
having offensive linemen healthy.
No, I was going to say also just the ability to have a guy like Brady Scott be able to play 3 different positions somewhat effectively. I mean, that is a difficult thing to do. I was talking to Dylan Gibbons yesterday on the podcast, and he was saying how, each play is drastically different for each position on the offensive line. Like any given play is just drastically different. So he said it's one thing to go from right guard to left guard, but it's another thing to also play a whole nother position in that same game. So just the fact that these guys can execute, they understand the full concept of what they're trying to do. It's not just their job. We're seeing a pattern. We're also seeing a pattern of guys being able to stay healthy and play consistently above average, right? Not giving up a sack in multiple games and just doing the things that they're able to do in the run game. And then, of course, the secondary. I think the secondary has gotten a lot better. I think they were the butt of a lot of jokes early on in the season, and they've played significantly better. And I think a lot of that is just due to the ability to take out the blown plays. Like if you take out those specific plays where they're just completely out of position, it makes a big difference. And I think that's the main thing that the secondary's eliminated.
Yeah, to add to Josh's point of the O-line, I think Maurice Smith coming back was a huge piece. I don't know if it's so much his talent is so much better than the other options. I just think there's something about him that's a calming influence at the center position. Obviously, a lot of mic calls, things of that sort before the snap. So it's kind of important to have that piece. And with the secondary, I mean, Coach Fuller and others have referenced, they don't compound their mistakes like they were earlier in the season where 1 leads to 2. Now, this week will be a big test for them in comparison to most recently, like the Syracuse game. How are they going to do with a scrambling quarterback? Against Syracuse, they got kind of gassed here, but they were willing to give that up because they didn't think Schrader could beat them in the air. So they were sort of willing to allow him to have some success. Now he had more than they would have liked. They can't allow that with DJ this weekend. He is a guy who's very capable on the ground with his feet, Jermaine Johnson actually made a comment yesterday referencing how effective of a runner he is. So it's certainly something that's on the forefront of their minds.
To Josh's point about the offensive line and just that group being better, what that's done, and yeah, getting Brady Scott to be someone who can be a utility player, Bavion Johnson moving to guard, not having to play center, and the depth is better. And we'll get into Dylan Gibbons in your scoop there later, Josh. But the offensive line performing better has made the run game markedly better. And getting Jordan Travis in the mix too, and there's a lot of things that have led to that. But a stat that I was digging on earlier, because Kenny Dillingham talked about when I asked him why the run game was so effective this past month. FSU leads the country in yards per carry during their 3-game win streak with like 6.91, I think it is, yards per carry. He said Jordan Travis getting in there healthy, getting offensive line continuity, and then winning first down, basically not having penalties that Chris mentioned earlier, where you're in second and long, second and 25 is huge. But one thing I'll add to that too, they're running the ball much more effectively on first down. In their 4-game losing streak, they averaged about 3 yards per carry on first down when they ran the ball. In the win streak, they're averaging 7 yards per carry on first down when they run the ball. And that's a huge difference when you talk about what happens on second down when you're facing second and third versus second and 7. That opens up the playbook. You're able to do play action off of it. You're able to keep running the ball if that's what you want. Your hand isn't forced. So that's a big part of what we're seeing is just cleaner, more consistency on offenses leading to more explosiveness. Zach, from your vantage point and you're watching the games, are you going as a student or are you just watching from TV right now?
I've done like a little bit of both. My dad's come up for a couple of games, so I've been to a couple with him. But yeah, I mean, I think the offensive line, like you guys were talking about, is probably the biggest difference. I think you're seeing a little bit more separation with receivers, and that's helped Jordan Travis and the run game, be not as predictable. And I think Kenny Dillingham was talking about like what you were saying, when they get into like a second and long situation, it's almost always like a rundown. And, obviously teams can sell out on the run, but when they're getting, success on first down, running the football, they're able to diversify the playbook a little bit more. So I think that's why you see a lot of the offensive success with the limit of offensive penalties like false starts and holdings and all those, things that can be prevented. And obviously we've seen a stark difference between, the first 4 games and then the last 3 in that department.
To
Josh,
add to the point of explosive plays, FSU has 38 20-plus yard plays on the season. Of those 38, 10 have gone for touchdowns. 12 of those such plays came against UMass season high.
Yeah, UMass will help out the pad the stats a little bit. FSU leads the country in long rushing plays and rushes of 20-plus yards, or leads Power 5 in that category. They're really, really good at creating explosives on the ground. Again, UMass helped with that, but they were still good at that even before UMass. Going back to the penalties, Mike Norvell talked about this being like it's a more disciplined and there's more of a focus. Mackenzie Milton did too. Josh, I wanted to ask Mike, and I couldn't pull the trigger on it. Like, their penalties have been better since they brought the refs back to practice. Do you think that's a stupid question to ask? Like whether like just having the officials there is making a difference? It does correlate perfectly, but I don't know. I feel like it might be a dumb question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've sat in on some of these press conferences and I've heard some of the questions that are asked. This would not fall under some of the dumber ones that are asked. No, I think it's legit. I mean, it's a move that they made. Norvell talked about it when he made it to bring the officials back out, and the players even said that they welcome the officials coming back out. So I think it was an important move, maybe a pivotal one if we look back and FSU can really rally and win, 3-4 games to end this season. Maybe that was the move that got the ball rolling.
What was the comment Kenny Dillingham made this week? They got tired of sucking or something like that in reference to why the penalties have been reduced. Essentially that they understood that mistakes like that lead to catastrophic returns on future downs and things of that sort, that they're not built to play behind the chains, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny was very blunt this week. I asked him what he thought of FSU leading the country in yards per carry. Chris, what was his response?
That's cool. He didn't know it.
Like he didn't see the tweet that I put out.
He's got to make that recruiting edit, though. You believe you.
Yep, when they get a 5-star, thank the tank once again. One more thing on practice, and then I want to get to kind of more Clemson, the recruiting impact of that game, get your guys' thoughts on that. But with practice, one thing I've noticed, and this has come as the body language, the energy, the intensity was really good at the start of the season and preseason before the Notre Dame game. After that Notre Dame game, it fell off a little bit. The Jacksonville State game, after that, there was a shell shock. That Tuesday or Wednesday practice after leading up to Wake Forest was one of the most like dead, there was shell shock there. The energy wasn't. Yes, very much so. It was like guys were zombies at practice, and I think it was just kind of they were shaken by that. Slowly but surely, that's been built back up. And when someone asks us about what we're seeing at practice that's different, to me, it's the body language. It's the way guys respond to coaching. When a coach says something to them, they're putting their arms around a coach, or the coach putting their arms around them. It's more intense. You're listening. You're attentive. There's this back and forth dynamic that happens too with confidence as it builds. So not only are you responding to coaching well, you're responding to failure as well in practice. Kevin Knowles being a great example of that on Wednesday. He matches up one-on-one with Keyshawn Helton in one-on-one drills, allows a completion. It's a perfect pass by Jordan Travis and a great catch by Keyshawn Helton down the sideline. Marcus Woodson talks him up, loves him up a little bit, basically says like, good job, you're right there. The very next rep against Keyshawn Helton, Kevin Knowles goes and gets an interception. The next one, they battle again in the red zone. Kevin knocks it down. Keyshawn gets him a slap on the helmet. There's a back and forth occurring, and there's guys building on reps. Are you seeing that, Chris? I think that's, to me, the one other difference is that there's this confidence brewing in practice.
Yeah, and we've seen a great deal with the secondary, more so than any other position. And they're probably the group that needed it the most, them and the O-line. The other thing I'll add is practices are extremely well organized. The direction of them is clear cut from word go. There's not wasted time. For example, special teams, I'm shocked it hasn't been better because in practice, one, they do it a ton, and two, there's hyper-focused on things that are causing issues on special teams. It's not like they're just going out there and running a punt return. They're running a punt return with the idea of you're catching it here, you're working this way, we're blocking it this way, we're going to run this on a prior punt return, for example, maybe pressure on the prior one. We're going to give the same look on the next one, but that one's more set up for return. This is why we're doing it. The why is constantly explained, and that's true in everything they do. And I think that's probably part of the reason the players are improving is they understand the why better. And the coaching staff is very, very consistent, and that's top down. That's a Mike Norvell thing, and it feeds off of his three coordinators and then throughout his staff. And I think that's probably the thing that I enjoy the most in watching the practice is having that constant view of it, is that you do see it's the same day in, day out. They don't really panic. They don't there's never a sudden shift in the way they're going about doing their business. But in moments where they need to do things differently to maybe get different results, you see a clear-cut plan and path that they're going about to try to do that. They did that with the secondary earlier in the year. With the O-line, I think it was more so getting guys healthy and getting guys cross-trained and getting guys comfortable and handling different roles and being in different groups. There's something about the five fingers fitting in the glove together that matters with the O-line more than any other position. But with other positions, it's more so you see them just kind of stacking blocks on top of each other and building it up and hoping for the returns. I think special teams is one of those areas that when they do find some success 2-3 times in a game, it's going to be fine. Like, we're not going to be talking about it the weeks after that. It's just a matter of it hasn't happened to this point in time. It's become a point of aggravation. And I think it's aggravating to them as much as it is to media and fans and the outsiders looking in.
That's kind of what's happened with offense and defense as well. Offense started against Syracuse to kind of figure it out a little bit. The next week, defense against UNC did, and you carry both of those over to UMass. So, yeah, it's just about the climb, about building. It's not always linear either, but it is worth noting that there is progress, and special teams is next to kind of fall in line with that if things progress with them as it has others. All right, so FSU up at Clemson this week. Clemson's going to have a pretty extensive list of visitors, including Arch Manning, 5-star quarterback there watching the game. Let's talk about the FSU perspective. Obviously, Joshua, what kind of buzz is occurring right now going into this game for FSU, and what could a win, I guess, do for FSU on the national stage to go ahead and upset Clemson?
I think a win would be huge because I've said Florida State had to weather the storm, and the storm was the bad start. And now we're almost to the point where, in the fourth quarter, when you're up a couple touchdowns and stopping the other team from scoring becomes important, but the clock in the end of the game is almost more important. And here we are, we're about 2 months, we're under 2 months from the early signing period. You got the rest of this month. You got November, and then December 15th is the early signing period. So some of these guys are going to be locked up signing with FSU in about 8-7 weeks. I think that's pretty exciting. So here, the focus still stays on Florida State playing on the defense, but a win against Clemson really, really helps them because, like I said, it's another week of the recruits on Twitter celebrating, on Instagram posting graphics of Florida State's win. I think a win against Clemson, dare I say, might lock up a few of these question marks, although I don't really think they're question marks, but it might lock up a few of these question marks that some of the fans have in the top of the FSU's recruiting class. So although we've seen a little bit of attrition, even to this point, it's nothing that was unexpected. I mean, Florida State still has a 13 ranked class. They have 16 commitments in 2022, and they have the ability to maybe add a couple before December. So I think a win here puts them in the right direction. A loss doesn't necessarily signify that the class is going to fall apart or anything like that. But I think it would be a blown opportunity with the momentum that FSU has.
Zachary, you may or may not be working on a piece about the significance of a win over Clemson, what that would mean for FSU recruiting. So I'll ask you to do a little bit of a preview for people to know what they're going to be reading at Knowles 24/7 later on.
Yeah, I'm just going to highlight a few recruits that I think would be impacted the most. Most of them are targets, but I think I also included Travis Hunter in there because I think, as much as we want to say that he's locked in and, everything like that, he is still taking, visits to Georgia. But if FSU goes out and beats Clemson, I think, whether it's NC State, the NC State game or the Miami game, those become games that recruits want to go see. They want to go see Florida State in action on a four-game win streak, seeing if, they can extend it. And I think with Travis Hunter specifically, if you're committed to a school, a 0-4 start is not, something you want to see. But if they beat Clemson, they completely flip the script. You haven't beat them in 5 years. You win 4 in a row. And I just think, we haven't seen Florida State recruit at Clemson's level in about that, same time, 5 years, since 2016, maybe. There just hasn't been, Florida State has not won many, I can't think of one head-to-head battle with Clemson since Jimbo Fisher left Tallahassee. So I just think this would be huge. It's almost perfect for Florida State to capitalize on. I don't think, a win against Clemson is going to, make them beat Clemson out for recruits right away, but it sets the foundation and it definitely shows to recruits as well as the fan base that Mike Norvell has this program in the right direction.
To add to Zach's point, head-to-head in 2022, I think the most significant one's probably Marvin Jones Jr. He's actually at Ohio State this weekend for his officials, so I'm interested to see if he's able to catch a glimpse of the FSU game. FSU kicks at 3:30. Ohio State, Penn State, I believe, is a night game, 7:30 or 8. Adding on Zach's point, I think with 22, it's more about messaging this game. I think with 23, it's more impact on individual recruits who are potentially looking at both schools. I don't think that impact happens as much with 22, partly because there's not a whole lot of them, but it is about momentum. It is about messaging. It is about, hey, we are getting better. And, this conference has been Clemson's for the last handful of years, and we're not doing that anymore. That game's over. FSU's not losing 6 times in a row to Clemson, stuff like that. FSU's only lost to one team in the ACC ever 6 times in a row, and they weren't a member of the ACC all of the years that it happened, and that's Miami. So it's one of those things that's super rare for it to happen. You want to put an end to it before it becomes, well, they never beat us, you should come play for us, would be Clemson's reverse messaging if they were to win. So, yeah.
A platinum bohica, as Jeff Cameron would say. You don't want 10 in a row to start being within reach. A lot of pressure starts building there. To Zach's point, that Miami game in 2 weeks is going to be big for officials. And I think I said this before, either beating Clemson this week or even NC State next week kind of helps build some of the momentum for what very well could be a primetime game, which you certainly hope it is if you have recruits there. Doak, Miami, under the lights. Like, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that, regardless of where the teams are at. It's still going to be a good atmosphere. So yeah, building any kind of momentum for that game would be sizable and significant. Anything else on recruiting, fellas, before we start transitioning to FSU Clemson preview directly?
No, I dropped a recruiting scoop a couple days ago, 2 days ago on the site. Go check that out. Kind of ties up a lot of the loose ends on some of the newer offers, and just a brief update on the wide receiver position. So go check that out on Knowles 24/7.
All righty, Josh, I got a question for you. Everyone wants to know, is Dylan Gibbons going to play this weekend?
Well, I wrote on Knowles 24/7 message board this morning that I spoke to a source, and there is some optimism that he will be ready to go on Saturday. He is not going to practice and has.
It's a live show. You may have to edit that one out on the podcast.
No, I'm just kidding. This is what a source told me.
I mean, yeah, you got a source, and it's not coming from Chris and I, so it's we're allowed to report news.
What I'm told is that it's not a ligament. It's a lower body issue. It's not a ligament tear. It's not anything that's going to keep him out for multiple weeks. If I was going to make I would say he's probable.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah,
so
I would say a hair between questionable and probable, like right in there. I think I think there will be like a game time decision being made, but I think there is optimism right now that Gibbons will be healthy and ready to go for the game. And if he is not, I don't think it's something where he's out for multiple weeks.
Refer back to Devontae Love Taylor last week. They kind of made a estimation in pregame whether or not he could go. That's when they made the call. I think it falls into a similar category.
But the source I talked to was kind of optimistic that Gibbons would be ready to go.
And Gibbons has been listed as day-to-day. So, somewhere between questionable and probable is probably fair. I'd swing more towards questionable, but there's a chance. There's a chance that he's going to give it a go on Saturday, and I think that's the takeaway here.
And to add to that, I'm told that the rest of the offensive line is healthy, as healthy as they've been all season, ready to go.
FSU is getting very healthy at the right time in a pretty important stretch across the board. And not everyone's 100%. Some guys are bruised and dinged up a little bit, but more or less the big time players are available and ready for this final stretch of the season.
Well, if Gibbons doesn't play, I can promise you this. I'm never going to talk to this source ever again. Can't trust him.
I love you, Josh.
Do we have any shout outs?
Change.
Josh mentioned Knowles 24/7 a few times. It's a good place to go get some FSU news. Subscribe if you want any bourbon advice. Bourbon on a Budget's a great podcast. Shout out TJ and Ben. Big Man, Big Heart's a good podcast to listen to as well. So, it's a lot going on in our world and outside of it.
I talked a little hoops on Double Fries No Slaw this week with Austin.
Snap! It's funny that TJ's been trying to get you on there for a while, and I knew like the only route to get Chris Nee on another podcast was going to be Hoops Talk. Sure enough. Creature of habit.
I'm a busy man.
Chris, you know what?
There's a lot of little league
Never
baseball
too busy
games
for
I
his
have to
first
attend
love,
with the two
though.
boys.
Chris, let's talk real quick. Hoops, I'm going to give you how much time should we give them, guys? A minute?
Free exhibition tonight against Mississippi College at the Tuck. So go and enjoy yourself. Hopefully Caleb Mills plays. You know how Ham is. If a guy's a little banged up in an exhibition, he's going to wrap him in bubble wrap and not throw him out there on the court. But hoping to see Caleb Mills. I think it'll be fun to see Jalen Worley, Matthew Cleveland, those young guys. It's an exhibition, so they should be able to unload the bench. So we'll get to see the bigs running around out there. They're not going to be super sharp. It's going to take a little bit of time for this team to gel and get a feel for itself and just everything that comes with playing on the court together. But it has plenty of talent. This team's capable of making another run. There's a reason they were picked second in the ACC by the media at ACC tip-off. Go enjoy it. 7 p.m. This is the first of two exhibitions. The women play one exhibition. I believe it's a week from yesterday, so next Wednesday. So there you go. That's what you got before Hoops officially tips off. And I'll be doing a Hoops preview here today. Should be running it.
Buy or Sinone. This comes from TJ, host of Double Fries No Slaw, and Bourbon on a Budget. Brendan makes knee stop multiple times to look for bourbon this week on the way up to Clemson.
Well, Sinone yesterday pulled his phone app out and showed me a map, and it had like 19 dots on it between here and my brother's house, which is where we're going to on Friday evening. So yeah, I think that's going to happen. But I may bury him in a field in between a couple of those stops. So we'll see.
Don't roll your eyes, Zachary, at me. We went to South Georgia, and I didn't make you stop once.
You almost ran
trip.
over a deer.
That was the deer's fault, not mine. Buyer Sonone, Josh. Chris kills me before we get to Atlanta. Is where the over/under is.
I'm giving. I said inside the 850 area code. You will.
We're not even going to make it outside the state of Florida. All right, Buyer Sonone, Josh. Buyer Sonone, disappointed that Dabo and Norvell have been cordial to each other this week after last year's back and forth.
No, because it shows me that Dabo is
Sonone
scared.
Would be the way to play it. Wait, Dabo's scared?
Yeah.
Wow. Go on.
Quiet Dabo equals scared Dabo.
Oh.
I think if Dabo was confident, yeah, he'd be rubbing it in a little bit, but I think he knows he's got a lot to be nervous about heading into this one.
Chris Buyer Sonone, you're surprised that Jordan Young's dominate quote didn't materialize into anything on the message boards.
I'll buy that. I was very pleased that it did not happen. It shows growth and maturity in the group.
And on Twitter. Good job, everyone.
I didn't really know who that was saying that.
Whoa.
Hey, he caught a 5-yard touchdown last week, I'll have you know.
You guys. Alrighty, so Chris and I are going to get into the nuts and bolts of the Clemson preview here. Josh and Zach, you're welcome to hang around and add to it. I know it's not your cup of tea. So if you want, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and give your prediction and get out of here, or you can hang around and give a prediction at the end. What would you like to do?
I got Florida State winning this one 32-28.
So, whoa! Wow! All right, can I get you out of here then? Do you want to go?
Josh with the walk off.
Stay.
All right, no, it's fine.
No, I want to stay. No, I want to.
Oh
stay.
my god! Oh my god! Okay, now I'm gonna feel obligated to involve you in questions. All right, Zach, do you want to stay or do you want to give your prediction?
I'll stay.
All right.
No class this morning, Zach? Or you just
Never
I don't have class on Thursday for the rest of the semester.
Well done, sir.
Okay. FSU, Clemson, 9.5-point favorite. The Tigers right now. What's the winning streak at Death Valley for Clemson, Chris? Is it 31 games? Is that right?
Yes, I believe it is 31.
So it's the longest nationally active. That's got to be up there all time as well, I would imagine.
No, I mean, FSU had about 20 on top of that at one point. I think it's like in the top 10. I think it's 9th.
Yeah.
I think it's in their notes. I think it's around 9th, but there's been several that were longer.
So it's a hard place to play. What has FSU done to kind of prep for, even with Clemson being down this year and being 4-3, not playing for a national title, still a hard place to play. What has FSU done to prep for that, Christopher?
Well, let me tell you, the noise in the IPF this week has been obnoxiously deafening. I think Norvell yesterday said it makes people cranky, including himself. But I mean, it's obnoxious. It's, when you go to the beach and you hear waves in your ear when you're sleeping at night, that's what this week of covering practice has been like. I just hear the yelling and the screaming of the IPF in my ear in the middle of the night.
It's
I wake
white
up in
noise.
cold sweats at 2 a.m.
No. You know what's funny, Chris, is I think that, so like basically what it is, if I can describe it for our listeners and viewers here, it's like, it's just constant fan noise, crowd noise, cheering, like, yeah, just cheer, like that's pumped into the IPF. But it's funny, someone had to have recorded that. Like that wasn't from a real game. Like there's probably actors that were paid money to just scream and yell, and it's just dubbed over.
I just imagine it being TJ and a collection of managers locked in a room yelling their heads off. And then him recording it and playing it.
I don't think that's how that works, because there's girls in there screaming too. So
to add to Clemson and the home streak, they've won 9 of the last 10 in the series at Memorial Stadium. That's a streak that began in 2003, or a stretch that began in 2003. Home team has won 14 of 18 in the series over the last 18. Also, Clemson has not lost back-to-back, and they lost last week, obviously, to Pitt. That is a streak. The back-to-back goes back to, I believe, November of 2011. Back-to-back games that they've not lost. So that kind of speaks to, Clemson's a little down and obviously wounded right now, but they don't lose a whole lot. Also, Dabo is 112-13 against AP unranked teams, including 89-3 against unranked teams since the start of 2012.
Okay.
Now, so we're both unranked. So
Dabo's good at beating lesser teams that he's favored to win. I mean, that's something. So what's been interesting, and I mean, it's a tale of two sides of the ball here, very much so for Clemson. Their offense has been disastrous in many ways. It's been super disappointing. The defense, really, really good. One of the best in the country. Not Georgia elite, but definitely a top 5 defense and one that's going to be tough to move against. Let's start off with Clemson on offense and when FSU's on defense. Chris, let's look at that. What stands out about what the Tigers, I was going to say are doing it, but in this case, really not doing so far this season?
Well, it was weird. I always look at quarter scoring breakdown because, like, UNC is a team that I think traditionally is very good in the second quarter under Mac, for example. Clemson this year has scored 56 points in the opening quarter of the game. They've only scored 57 in the second and third combined. They're losing fourth quarters 20-27, and obviously losing overtime 13-7. So it's kind of interesting. They tend to start hot and struggle more so. Now, I'm sure some of that scoring is inflated from the South Carolina State game. It's one of the few games this year where they've scored over 20 points. It's the only game they've scored over 20 points, or 21. Speaking on the offense, the running game hasn't been very good. They're down a couple backs, one because of COVID. Will Shipley will be their main man. He's their second leading rusher. He's only played in 5 of 7 games. Per game average, he's their best rusher on the team. On the season, they're averaging 321.3 yards per game. That's 117th in the nation. 145.1 on the ground, 85th in the nation. 176.1 through the year, 111th in the nation. 37.9% on third downs is 85th in the nation. Now, when they get in the red zone, they do punch it in. 85.7% of the time they scored on 21 red zone visits. 15 of those 21 are touchdowns, 11 rushing, 4 passing, 3 field goals made. They don't have a whole lot of explosive plays to show in the sense of putting points on the board, which is a departure from normal Clemson. Clemson is usually very explosive, not near so as much this year. And it kind of all begins with quarterback. That's the big question mark. You pressure him, he struggles.
Did you abort on saying DJ's last name? Because I was hoping you were going to say it first.
Oh, you were going to make me do it? No, you're the host of the show. You have to carry this weight. But you were looking at his PFF too, I think, after I looked at it. So kind of dive in what you took away from looking at DJ on PFF.
You won't say his last name either. Damn
Nope.
it. Berg, do you want to help us out here? No? Okay.
I literally studied it on Tuesday, but it's been 2 days since I studied it.
I know.
So I'm not prepared for the test anymore.
You're the host.
I came into it prepared, but here's what's happening. I'm looking at the name now, and I know phonetically it's not going to work out, and I know I'm going to butcher it, and I just don't even want to do it. Ukulele. I don't want this to be a point where there's just 4 white guys talking about a Samoan name that we can't pronounce. I just can't pronounce. I'm awful with
We
names.
haven't struggled this much since the Notre Dame preview.
Anyways, we'll just call him DJ for this. So DJ comes in as a blue chip 5-star quarterback, which Dabo's done a great job of loading up on those guys, but he has not been prodigious by any stretch. And he showed some flashes last year when Trevor Lawrence was out against Notre Dame. And so, like, he's someone that has the physical tools. Like, you watch him. I watched him against Pitt last week, and I rewatched that whole entire game. And, like, yeah, I mean, he can spin it and throws it pretty effortlessly, but there is this huge disconnect right now. And some of it is his wide receivers aren't helping him out. There's a lot of drops. But also, like, the body language isn't great. They pulled him for Tyser Fumanchu. Remember a former FSU recruit that FSU said no to for Sam Howell. I saw that worked out. But basically, like, there's not a lot of continuity and chemistry and cohesiveness on offense right now, which is problematic. And I'm pulling up DJ's stats here right now.
He's 1 of 9 for 199, 54.8 passing on the year, 1,102 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His completion percentage ranks 99th in the nation. He's only averaging 157.4 passing yards per game on the season. He does have 67 rushing attempts, that is including sacks, for 236 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns on the season.
Yeah, but like there's opportunities, I think, more to run in it. His rushing yards have gone down in the back half of the season, which is interesting. The completion percentage against Pittsburgh was 48%. I mean, he's been above 60% completion percentage just once. That's a lot, technically. He's only been at 60% completion percentage once in the last 4 games. And that was 60 right on the dot against Syracuse. Part of that is drops again. They have 14 drops this season per PFF that his passes have not been caught. So that doesn't help a whole lot. But even with the adjusted passer rating, if those guys are catching the ball, like his completion percentage is 66 range. Like it's just, there's something missing. They just don't look like they have a great idea of what they want to be on offense. They can't get into a rhythm. They have talent at wide receiver. I know they've had injuries up front on offensive line. Will Shipley being back will help them. He's an explosive, twitchy little running back. I actually didn't know he was a real player. I thought when I was playing with him in a video game recently, like I thought he was just every now and then NCAA creates like a 5'9" really quick white running back. And I thought that's who, like, it was just a generated player. I didn't know Will Shipley was real. So I'm sorry, Will. I didn't know that about you. But he's nice. But yeah, man, the body language is weird when you watch that team. There seems to be friction and tension. Now, the key, Chris, is you don't want to be the team that allows Clemson to get going, right? Like, I think they have the weapons for that to happen. This isn't an untalented offense, sans the injuries up front on the offensive line. That's my main thing is you gotta make Clemson earn it and force them to be methodical and consistent and precise, because that's something they haven't shown that they can do this season.
Yeah, you don't want Uwe Gulale. I think
nice.
I looked at it again. I studied up. You don't want him getting it going.
Thanks,
that's along the lines. That's not how it is in the Clemson guide, but it's pretty close. So opponents have recorded 13 sacks against them. That's 48th in the nation at 1.8 sacks per game. They do only allow 3.41 tackles for loss per game, which is an incredibly impressive stat. Ranks 12th in the nation, tops in the ACC. Starting O-line's been a little banged up. Main place to look at this week is at center. Whether it's Hunter Rayburn or Mason Trotter is kind of the thing to be figured out. A familiar name should be at right guard, Will Putnam. Speaking of Shipley, 4.9 per rush. He's led them in 3 of 5 games that he's played in with rushing. He has 54 carries for 263. Kobe Pace, who is the back who actually has the most rushing yards, is out with COVID for this one. He has 327 rushing yards, 5.5 per attempt with 3 rushing touchdowns. And he's led them in rushing 2 of the 7 games. I think DJ led them in rushing the other 2. Offensively, they're unimpressive vertically. I guess it's the easiest way of putting it, which is so weird because it's such a departure from what Clemson has been with Lawrence, with Watson, with prior quarterbacks that they've had in recent years. Even with some of what DJ did last year when he got an opportunity to play. His stats last year, in the sense of hitting rate, big plays, things of that sort, is much better than it's been this year. Now, some of that is there's a lot more film on him. Teams are able to scheme more for him. Personnel is different. Offense is different. Also, last year he got into games a lot, probably in garbage time. Plays a whole different role than playing from the get-go. But yeah, offensively, they've just been kind of dreadful for what's expected of Clemson. I mean, they're one of 2 teams in the country that hasn't scored more than 3 touchdowns in a game against an FBS opponent. Arizona is the only other one. They're currently winless. So it kind of speaks to you just can't have success when you're that way on offense. But are they capable? Yeah. I mean, and God is a guy that can average about 20 yards per touch.
I thought you said in God. I'm like, yeah, if God's on the team, Chris, they should be pretty good, which Dabo probably believes that they're helping him at all times. Anyways.
Shipley and DJ, both capable runners. DJ likes doing his most damage off of the center guard combination, working behind those guys, kind of working to the middle. It's not so much getting wide and getting wild. Justin Ross is still a pretty good football player. He's not the same as he was before the back injury, but he's still plenty talented. He's still a number 1 receiver. Mm-hmm. And Davis Allen's a pretty damn good tight end, truthfully one of the better ones in the league, and a guy who's certainly capable if you're going to leave soft spots in the middle. So are they capable? Sure. Have they done it this year? No. So that's kind of the big question. FSU at times has been susceptible to being a bad defense at times. We haven't seen that in recent weeks. Hopefully that trend continues. Hopefully Jermaine Johnson makes it a tough day for DJ at the office. In the middle, keeps him in the pocket, allowing the ends to try to tee off. If I'm FSU, defensively, it's stop the run, which it always is. I mean, that's a simple cliche thing, but it is always stop the run. And then it's a matter of keep everything underneath, make them work their way down the field, which is sort of the same thing Clemson's defense likes to do to teams, which is, you complete the ball, we get you down to the ground. You got to keep doing it 7, 8, 9 times in a drive to score. And at some point, we're going to ratchet it up and see if we can create a mistake against you.
That's one thing that FSU's defense, and that's one of my keys here for FSU to pull off the upset. Since the second half against Louisville, and sans just like a handful of plays against Syracuse, they've really forced teams to drive on them. And then they've been really good once those teams have gotten inside the red zone. In the past 3 games, Chris, FSU is 9th nationally in red zone defense. They've only allowed 37% of trips inside the red zone to lead to points. Clemson, a few numbers here that kind of just point to how bad they are at consistently driving the ball. They're 112th nationally in points per drive with 1.65. Their average drive distance goes 26.5 yards. It's 115th nationally. Now, when they hit an explosive play, so either a 10-yard run or 15-yard pass, their points per drive goes up to 3.71, which is 76 nationally, gets you more in that slightly below average range, makes them more competent to complement a really great defense. So, yeah, I think that's the key. I'm with you there. You got to force them. You can't give up easy plays. Force them to drive. You mentioned that Clemson's good inside the red zone. FSU's been good on defense inside the red zone. Let the chips fall where they may then, if that becomes the case. If they're able to move the ball consistently and run the ball on you and have balance with the passing game and Ungale, I think I did it, DJ Ungale gets in a rhythm, then, then that's what happens.
We'll accept it.
That's kind of you're playing as an underdog, but you can't make it easy on them, and you can't allow that offense that has not been in a rhythm, that hasn't been particularly explosive this year, to wake up. Like, force them to earn it.
Before we move on to defense, Josh, what are you thinking right now? You're muted. What are you thinking right now?
I'm
this
really,
very second.
Really happy that LCID is up 10% right now.
Have you watched Clemson this year? Did you watch the Pitt game or the Syracuse game?
Yeah, I watched the Pitt game.
What was when you watch them on offense, knowing what Clemson has been for this last mostly decade, what did you kind of say to yourself of like, man, they're bad or something of that
playmakers. I thought that they lacked like I even put in the text group, I was like, what's up with Justin Ross? And then I quickly remembered that he had been out for a year because he just didn't look explosive and he didn't look like he could win one-on-ones against the Pitt defenders. So I thought DJ, I don't think that he's like this transcendent talent, but I also don't think that he's just god awful. Watching just a little bit of that Pitt game, you could tell that Clemson misses a lot of the talent that they lost last year.
And they lack. Go ahead.
I was going to ask young Zachary for his thoughts on the same question.
Yeah, well, like Josh was saying, I think it's more of the they have playmakers, but those playmakers just aren't making plays. Like they're just dropping passes. It looks like the O-line's kind of missing assignments. There's some wild pressures that get to DJ a lot that I feel like shouldn't. And then I was rewatching that Georgia game, and they were able to move the ball decently well. And a lot of that was because they had Joe Ngata, who's a really good receiver. And I think like that might be an issue for Florida State. Like Justin Ross and Joe Ngata, obviously I don't think he was playing the Pitt game. So he's back. And I think he's kind of that difference maker on offense that could spark things. But like Josh was saying, Justin Ross doesn't look as explosive. He was this when he was, I think it was his true freshman season in 2019. And he was incredible. And I just don't see that same version of him. Maybe that's because of the injury or, how DJ's delivering it. But I just, it doesn't look the same.
The thing that does sort of concern me that Clemson could do differently is get DJ out of the pocket more and run him, because we've seen less athletic quarterbacks get major yards on Florida State on the ground. So that could be a wrinkle that they.
Why are you talking about Garrett Schrader like that?
Garrett Schrader is a dynamic. Actually, his numbers have been really great. He was
a very effective runner.
He's built more like a tank, while DJ's more athletic, though.
Yeah.
I think he might be like one of the top rushing quarterbacks in the country statistically. Yeah. So
he was good at that at Mississippi State too. That's something that translated with him on the transfer. To add to Zach's point on the receivers, Justin Ross catching 34 straight games. He leads the Tigers this year with 33 receptions and 3 receiving touchdowns, 341 receiving. And Ngata only has 18 receptions, but they've gone for 352. That's 19.56 per reception, which is 15th in the country. I think 3rd in the ACC, if I recall correctly. He also has a touchdown. I'm amazed he only has 1 touchdown because he is their explosive play guy as a receiver. 3rd best receiver and the only other one over 100 receiving yards on the season. Tight end Davis Allen, 15 receptions for 101 receiving yards.
One thing that's always stood out about Clemson's offense, and I remember this in 2018, 2017. Chris and I went up there, and he said that's when Hunter Renfrow was still there. They had a bread and butter of like when things got dicey for them, an intermediate pass catcher to kind of keep things moving along.
When you need 6,
yeah.
he got you 7.
Yeah,
Yep.
look at the national championship game.
Yep. Amari Rogers, not to Hunter Renfrow's level, but similar, a slot receiver who was more of kind of like a gadget running back, but could do various things intermediate over the middle of the field. Clemson has always had great outside receivers, Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, and I think they still have really dynamic like field stretchers or guys who can be that, but that the mixture of someone being there to kind of put pressure on the middle of the defense and open things up outside for one-on-ones with your big play receivers, just it hasn't been there for Clemson this year. I think that's been something that's missing. And I don't know if not getting back is something that like alleviates that a little bit or helps make that better for Clemson. I don't know. But that's been something that stood out to me when watching them. Is just don't have that bread and butter. All right. Offense for Clemson done. Let's go to Clemson's defense and FSU's offense. To me, this is a more intriguing matchup because it's a strength for FSU. They do something elite, which is run the football, and Clemson's defense is elite. And I think that's really where like who dictates the terms of this game. So, Chris, I'll let you throw out some of your fun numbers, and we'll kind of dive into it.
Clemson has allowed only 2 rushing touchdowns on the season. They only allowed 3.2 yards per carry. They've allowed 7 passing touchdowns on the season against them. 216 passing yards per game allowed. 9 offensive touchdowns on the season. That's second in the country, I believe, to Georgia. They've not allowed an offensive touchdown in 3 games. Them and Georgia are the only teams to do that. Georgia's actually done that 4 times. Clemson's only done it 3 times. So it kind of speaks to that. Opponents are averaging 14.6 points per game, which is tied for 3rd in the nation against them, while posting 336 yards per game, 37th in the nation. 216 passing, 51st in the nation, 120 rushing, 29th in the nation. Opponents are converting 37.1% of the time on 3rd down against them. They are number 1 in the country in red zone defense, allowing opponents to score just 60% of the time. Opponents have entered the red zone 20 times against Clemson, have only 5 touchdowns, 25% of the time, to show for it. 2 rushing, 3 passing, 7 field goals, so 12 total scores out of 20.
All right, so they're very, very, very good on defense. Personnel-wise, let's see. I'm going to go down the board here, Chris. First off, they got Tyler Davis back against Pitt. That's going to be big for them because their defensive line and their linebackers, that's really – talk about the front porch for FSU's defense, and even without Brian – was it Breesy? I know.
Yeah.
I need to learn these 5-stars names. FSU hasn't been swimming in 5-star pool recently, whereas Clemson has. So – even without him, they have a very stout defensive front. Their linebackers are experienced and in the right place, solid guys. Xavier Thomas is a former blue chip defensive end who dealt with some ailments and just hadn't quite lived up to expectations, but he's really stepped up this year. 21 pressures. He leads the team there as a pass rusher. He also leads
them in sacks.
Yeah, so he's been really good. He's been solid as a run defender too. So they just make life really difficult on you. They don't give up anything easy up front. They put a lot of pressure. Brent Venables is a brilliant defensive coordinator. Kenny Dillingham talked about how their game plan changes so drastically week to week with Clemson. And that is a testament to not just Brent Venables being smart, but the scheme they have, the veteran leadership they have, that they're able to always kind of mix things up from week to week. You never know quite what you're going to get. So between the personnel, the coaching, it's going to be really hard to run on them. Passing on them, not going to be super easy either. But I do think there's some vulnerabilities that you can exploit. So let's get to that, Chris. When you're looking at Clemson's defense and how it matches up with FSU's offense, a lot of people are saying it's going to be a race to 20 points. As Josh prognosticated, maybe more than that. If you're FSU, how do you score enough to get over 20 points and give yourself a chance here?
By forcing Clemson to play down towards the line of scrimmage against you and then popping something over the top. I mean, Pitt's success came with their quarterback being capable of making big-time throws, and he is a pocket-passing, high-level quarterback in the college game currently, but making big-time throws down the field, more so to the middle of the field, attacking safeties and things of that sort. FSU obviously doesn't have a passer who's of that level of Kenny Pickett, but they can do some things with eye candy, getting people off balance, creating confusion, creating one-on-ones, and then you got to go win those one-on-ones. And FSU used to be dreadful at winning one-on-ones. They've shown a slight improvement in recent weeks with that, including the UNC game. That trend needs to continue.
Going against a better caliber of defender than you have at any point there in the 3-game win streak. So we'll see. But there will be one-on-one opportunities. Kenny Dillingham, Mike Norvell are some of the best in the country at dialing up those one-on-ones. It's on Jordan Travis to hit them. Josh, you said FSU scores 32 points to win this game. How do you foresee that happening? What do you think the offense has to do to really do something that no one else has done against Clemson this season?
They got to make the most of their opportunities. They're going to be there. We've seen them. Guys are getting more confident winning some one-on-ones, but we've also seen FSU's ability to scheme up some offensive plays where they completely break down the defense and get a free shot down the field. We know it's going to happen. We just got to see FSU set up the run to make it work. If Jayshon Corbin and these guys can be effective in the run, there's no doubt in my mind FSU is going to be able to throw over the top of this defense at least 2 or 3 times. So just making the most of opportunities and setting up the run game, I think, are the 2 most important things Florida State's offense needs to do against Clemson's defense on Saturday.
So
this is a huge chance for Mike Norvell, Kenny Dillingham to flex their offensive muscles.
Yeah.
And they're creative. And from watching practice the last couple of days, they're super hyper focused. I know they're not going to say it's any different, but you can tell the blood flowing a little faster this week. I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to be super vanilla. Now, I think they're going to try to control the clock to some degree, shorten the game, try to protect the ball. Clemson's had at least 1 takeaway in every game this season and in 8 consecutive games dating back to last season. It's what they do. They have 6 interceptions on the season. They also tend to strip the ball quite a bit and do a good job of cleaning it up. So that's one of those things. It's going to be prevalent in the game. And FSU has done a better job recently of valuing the football. But I'm very interested to watch how FSU tries to create their opportunities.
Without getting into too much information or detail there, I just got to say that I think that Mike and Kenny feel really good about the game plan they have. They seem confident in the way the guys are operating it in practice. And then that you just see again when you talk about body language and the way guys interact with each other, that's at a higher level than we've seen. Would you agree with that, Chris? Like there seems to be this level of confidence and almost like energy.
There's less of what you're supposed to do there, and there's more of that's how you do it.
Right. A lot of like fist pumps or like finger point like on the ground for Norvell being like, yep, that's it. That's it. So they feel good about it. And you have to go out, execute it with that crowd on Saturday, and then that changes things a little bit. But they feel good about it. One other aspect, and I agree totally with Josh said, with you have to hit the big opportunities. That's another key here. That's on Jordan Travis to win like Chris said, when the defense creeps up, if you get the run game going a little bit, you have to take your shots over the top. That's what FSU has done under Jordan Travis when it has been successful on offense. You saw like against UNC, they hit on those. But to get that going, and I think ultimately what could be the difference maker for FSU is your strength is the rushing attack. I don't think you're going to go 3 yards, 4 yards at a time, clouded dust, and be able to just consistently carve out space. But what you can do is occasionally get guys to the second level, whether it's with misdirection, whether it's with the read option game that Jordan's been doing a little bit better, a lot better recently and been really good with. And if you set up ways, which FSU has done, go back and look at what Mike Norvell and Kenny did against Houston. I think it was in 2019 or maybe 2018 when Ed Oliver was there, and they had a really good running game going, but Houston had one of the best defensive tackles in the country. You're able to run away from him, and you're basically put a lot of pressure on the safeties to make plays in space. I go back to that because I think that's where there's not a whole lot of ability to win one-on-one in traffic with Clemson, given how good their defensive front is with the linebackers and the defensive tackles and the edge setters. But the safety's a little bit of a different story. RJ Mickens is one of the best safeties in the country. He's a dude who doesn't miss. He's second nationally among Power 5 safeties in run defense grade per PFF. But they also have a dude named Nolan Turner, who's one of the worst safeties in the country. He has a missed tackle rate of 28.6%. Jalen Phillips, who they use 3 safeties a lot, has been playing a lot more. He has a missed tackle rate of 26.1%. You have to identify an area where you can find somewhat of an edge. It's getting Jayshon Corbin, Trayshawn Ward, even Lawrence Toafili or DJ Williams into those situations where you're one-on-one with a safety. Jimbo used to say this all the time. Sometimes you design things up where you have your running back one-on-one with someone. You need a guy like Dalvin Cook to miss. I don't think there's a Dalvin Cook on this roster, but you have 4 capable running backs. At least 2 have proven to be very good this season. you got to make a safety miss a couple times here to win this game. And I think that has potential to happen. So yeah, that's how FSU wins this game to me is you're able to create some chunk plays enough both in the run game and pass game, and then you don't let Clemson get going. The question is, do we think FSU can win this game? Let's go around the horn. Josh said 32-20 already.
No, I said 32-28.
28. All right.
I think Clemson scores more than they have all season, and I think Florida State's going to have to score more than 30 to beat them.
Get your predictions in here if you're watching in the comments section. Zach, what do you have for the outcome?
I think Florida State's not going to be able to get it done offensively. I think Pitt is a way better team on offense, and they were only able to put up 27 points in their last game. I'm going 24-14 Clemson.
Okay. Christopher? No, real quick. Christopher threw a thread on Knowles 24/7 at the beginning of the week. Basically, how do you feel about this game? That was my first indication that man feels like he's seen something in the numbers and the trend. Josh shaking his head. He knows his creature of habit. He knows what he's seen. All right, Chris. I'm excited for this.
I want to pick FSU. I do, and I have all week. DJ's not blowing me away. Clemson's defense is good, but it's not the defense of a couple recent years where it would just suffocate you. I mean, they're good. I'm not trying to shortchange their defense at all. I'm going to take Clemson 21-20, and that's a cop-out entirely because I really do believe FSU can win this game. But I also think FSU to some degree can be a magical elixir for Clemson to figure some things out and get it going. Clemson is full-blown backs against the wall going into this game. I mean, if they lose this, it's got feelings of a season that's going to maybe spin a little bit out of control. We've done this to Miami in the past. It would be lovely to do it to Clemson. But I'm going to pick Clemson by a point at home. I'm giving them the home edge by a point, 21-20.
Okay. FSU's going to shock everyone. Here's my prediction. And get Dabo Swinney fired. They're going to beat them 60-0. Dr. Dabo is going to have to actually go get a doctorate degree somewhere. No. So I entered this week thinking, I think all of us think there's at least a scenario where FSU can win. This isn't like recent years where even when the coaching staff is saying, we think we have a really good chance, that we didn't believe that against Clemson in recent years, and FSU gets housed. Going into this week, I thought FSU, maybe there's a 30% chance of winning. There's a scenario where we can see it. Watching the practice this week, watching the confidence, watching the way they operated, the intensity level. I promise I wouldn't do this to myself because I've done it before where I've put a lot into practice. Going into Wednesday's practice, and I liked what I saw so much on Tuesday that I was like, man, I could put this a coin flip game, 49% for FSU. Right now, after watching Wednesday's practice, diving into the numbers, I'm confident FSU covers. The tank is 3-0. The tank says FSU is about to be 4-0 when this jersey's donned because I got FSU winning 24-21. I think they figure it out. I think they legitimately have the ammunition on offense to score on Clemson. I think the defense is showing more improvement, and I'm believing in this team and its growth. So, yeah. I like that we all split there. Josh is muted again, which has just been really a struggle.
I was celebrating. You got me so hyped. Your explanation, the buy-in. I'm ready to go charge out these doors and onto the field.
Thank you.
It's Jordan Travis's chance to prove Brendan completely right for his hyperbole preseason reports of how great of a passer he'd become. I'm saying that half jokingly. So
do you think he gets his Heisman moment this weekend?
Slow your roll a bit over there, Newberg. Mute yourself again, okay?
Right. I was just trying to get Brendan hyped.
But no, if he can hit a few of them, they got a real chance. Because they can't run it all day and win. As good as they are at running the ball, I just don't think against this defense they can do that. They got to hit in the passing game to some degree.
One thing I want to see Jordan do a little less of that we saw against UMass was a little bit more dancing around than he had done. When he gets to the second level, cutting back and stuff. That ain't going to play against Clemson. You may get
finish forward,
destroyed. Yeah, you just go ahead, get the 3 or 4 yards like you did against UNC. Get down, get the yards that you get, and then live to play another down.
So if Jordan Travis gets injured in the game, who goes in to replace him?
I think Norvell made a comment on Monday that made me think it's definitely Milton. So he's fully healthy, fully ready to go, ready to contribute, all those things. So I would still lean Milton. But going back to the scenario we previously spoke of, if Milton was to struggle, I don't think they're scared of putting Chuba out there. I don't think that's a preference, but I don't think they're scared of it either.
Yeah. I think as long as it's like a meaningful – I think if Jordan Travis were to go down in the third quarter with FSU up or down 3 points or whatever, it's a close game, I think we see Mackenzie Milton out there.
That's kind of what the vibe was that I got after the UMass game and talking to people. I'll stop there. I believe
if Clemson is up 51-3 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth, I think we see Chuba.
If this offense scores 50, that's a tarmac. You can't give up 50 points. No,
that's a tarmac.
I mean, you can't. This offense has been horrible. You can't be the elixir. Chris mentioned elixir. You cannot be the elixir. I think that's where
my elixir was 25 points. Yours is 51.
Josh's is 53 points. Evidently, he thinks they're gonna UMass. Well, Florida
just
State
saying. In that scenario, I don't see Mackenzie Milton trying out on the field.
Okay.
That's all. It's just a hypothetical. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
So much went wrong if that happens that I don't even know how to comprehend to get to the point where
I'll be
putting Chuba Purdy out there.
Halftime.
Jesus. Yeah, I don't know how to get to the point where playing Chuba Purdy means anything at that moment.
Josh, you're really killing the momentum. We were all feeling real good, and then you brought this scenario in there, and it just...
It's what I do.
One thing I want to say is...
It goes full circle to the question that I asked you guys right before we started taping the podcast.
What was that?
It's just about Adam Fuller's job security.
Oh, I mean, listen, they're playing better. I can see guys are legitimately there's a response to him and understanding the scheme and being more coordinated. So, it's moved in a really positive direction.
I'm saying I think it would take a 51-point loss to get that going again.
If you get up 50 points,
I think he's here to stay.
To the 110th offense in the country, then that would be a problem. I do want it for context because half of us picked FSU to win, half picked FSU to lose in a close game. There is belief, there is buy-in in this program, and that's not just to Adam Fuller as a defensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, understanding what the offense identity is. It's all across the board. It's getting better. And part of that is you beat up on UMass and you found a way to win against an average Syracuse team. And then you went and surprised a lot of people against an average UNC team on the road. You haven't gotten a signature win yet. Maybe the UNC one counts as a signature win. That team's hard to figure out. But
plus you've been dreadful on the road.
Yes.
Before UNC.
Before UNC. But this would be the next step for FSU to go ahead and that crowd, that environment, that program, even as they're struggling, that would be a step forward. If you do not win, but you come out and play well, that doesn't mitigate the growth that we've seen. And I think that's just one thing I want to emphasize to the people listening is this progress. We talked about this last year. It's not necessarily linear. You're allowed to have a little baby step backwards. You're going to lose games. You disagree, Josh? You're allowed to what?
Not according to the fans.
Oh, well, that's why we're paid to provide context on the team.
I was speaking for the fans. Sorry.
You're a man of the people. Zach was shaking his head too. I don't like that. Don't shake your head at me.
It just depends if they lose, it depends in what manner. Because if it's they start quitting and doing that kind of stuff, then I don't know if you can still be hopeful about the growth that you saw.
I think quit's gone from this team.
I agree.
mean, if they score 53
this
points,
year, even when it went really, really bad early in the year.
If it's a Josh scenario where they're giving up 50, then something horrible went wrong that we can't quite reasonably predict. I don't think that's going to be the case. But I mean, there was a moment against Wake Forest late that game where the team didn't really look like it cared to want to be out there on defense, and they've buttoned that up, and that has not been an issue. And it hasn't been an issue for frankly, 3.5 games now. So I think they've turned the corner there. A loss isn't necessarily a huge setback. I do agree with Zach. If you get blasted, then that changes things a little bit. But going into this game, I think we're all cautiously optimistic about the growth that we've seen from Florida State and how that pertains to matching up against still a good Clemson team. Not a great one, but a good one and a great defense. So that'll be that. We good here, fellas? Anything else? All right. For Zach Blostein, Josh Newberg, Chris Nee, I'm Brendan Sinone. You may not hear from me on Saturday because I've been pushed out of a rolling car. In that case, it's been fun. Happy Halloween, everyone. We'll talk to you on Saturday for the instant.